Hello, dear students. I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to a new lecture. In this lecture, we're going to start with a grammar lesson entitled Conditionals. What are the objectives for this lecture? By the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify the conditional sentences and change a real-life situation sentence into a conditional sentence using three main steps. So first of all, what is a conditional sentence? A conditional sentence is a supposition or an assumption that is opposite of reality. When I'm assuming something that didn't happen yet, okay? For example, let's take a look at the following sentences. When I say, James likes pizza, so he went to an Italian restaurant for lunch. That's the reality. He likes pizza, and as a result, he went to an Italian restaurant for lunch. Now we're going to change this sentence from reality to an assumption. Okay, we're going to assume something else different to what happened in reality, which means we're going to change this sentence into a conditional sentence. So realize what we're doing here. First of all, when we change this sentence into a conditional, we're assuming or supposing, as I said, something opposite of this reality. For example, if James didn't like pizza, he wouldn't go to an Italian restaurant. Okay, so again, the reality is that James likes pizza, and as a result, he went to an Italian restaurant for lunch. But if James didn't like pizza, if he didn't like it, we're assuming that he does not like it. So if he didn't like it, he wouldn't go to an Italian restaurant. So that's the conditional sentence in which we're assuming something which did not really happen, and it's also opposite to reality. So here, James likes pizza. Here, we're saying if he didn't like it, he went, he wouldn't go. So far, so good. Now, let's move on to the form of a conditional sentence. You need to know that a conditional sentence is basically a cause-effect sentence, as we said. For example, he likes pizza, so, or as a result, he went to an Italian restaurant. Here's another example. If you study well, you will pass. Here's a conditional sentence. So if you study well, that's the cause. What would the effect be, or the result of your studying is passing the exam. So the cause part would be the part including the if clause, okay? Or if itself, all right? So the cause is the part including if, and we call it the condition. In this condition, which is when you study, if you study, in this condition, which is the cause, that effect will take place, or that would be the result. If you study in this condition, in this situation, or in this case, which is the cause, that would be the result. All right? Now, in grammar, you will be asked to change a real-life situation sentence into a conditional, or we can also call it a supposition that's opposite to that of the real-life situation. Now, let's take a look at the following examples. First of all, Rebecca enjoys swimming. Okay, positive, she enjoys swimming, so she enrolled in the swimming club. That's a real situation. Now, let's say you were asked to change that to a supposition, which is opposite to reality. We're going to change it to a conditional sentence. So you would say, if Rebecca didn't enjoy swimming, so she enjoys, she didn't enjoy, she wouldn't enroll in a swimming club. You see, we changed a real life situation to a supposition. We're supposing the opposite of the real situation. Now, in order to change from a real life situation to a conditional, you must follow three major steps. All right? First step is to identify the cause, which we said it's the part having the if, okay? Then step two, you have to move one step back in the timeline. As you see, the present changed to the past in the cause, and you have to change positive to negative. So if she likes, we say she didn't like, if she didn't like. So negative should be changed to positive. For example, Rima went to the doctor because she suffered a severe stomach ache. Now, what's the cause? She suffered a severe stomach ache. As a result, she went to the doctor. So first step is we identified the cause part. Second step, we're going to look at the tense of the verb in the cause part. So what's the verb here? Verb suffer. What's the tense of it? It's in the past. Suffered. We added ed. And what we're going to do is go back one step in the timeline, which is what? Past perfect, because we already know from not passive active, from quoted reported speech that when we go one step back in the timeline, all the present tenses will go to the past tenses, past simple will go to past perfect, and past perfect stays the same. So here, suffered would go to had suffered. So past simple would go back to past perfect. And third thing is that we have to change the action verb from having a positive connotation to a negative connotation. So she suffered if she hadn't suffered. So we should add not to the linking verb. Okay, now you're going to practice this sentence. If Rima hadn't suffered a severe stomach ache, she wouldn't have gone to a doctor. Okay, so that's the answer. We already answered it. Again, let's go back. We said Rima went to the doctor because she suffered a severe stomach ache. The answer would be, if Rima hadn't suffered a severe stomach ache, we say she wouldn't have gone to a doctor. All right. Now, the following chart will help you to quickly change to the conditional. For example, he eats junk food, so he became obese. All right. We said present simple goes to past and past goes to past perfect. Present simple, we use will plus base form. Past simple, we use would plus base form. And if it's in past perfect, we use would have plus past participle. For example, here, this one changed to past perfect. So here we said would plus have plus past participle. Wouldn't have gone. Would not, because it's negative. So again, because we changed from past simple to past perfect, the main verb in the cause should be written in the form of past perfect, which is had plus past participle of that verb, and the other part, which is the effect, should be would plus for sure not, because it's negative, so wouldn't, okay, plus have plus past participle, as in this example, wouldn't have gone. Now in this example, we have it in the present. So in the past, it should be eat goes to didn't eat, okay, and became would be wouldn't become, okay, would plus base form, wouldn't become. All right, so another example, Randall caught a cold because he swam in rainy weather. Okay, so caught is past simple. We say would or wouldn't have caught. Again, Randall caught a cold because he swam in rainy weather. What's the first step? We underline the cause. He swam in rainy weather. What's the main verb in the cause? Verb swim. In which tense is it written? It's written in the past. I identified the cause, the verb in the cause, and its tense. So it's past simple. It should go back to past perfect. So we say had swum, but we know it should be negative. We say if he hadn't swum in cold weather, comma, Randall, we said caught would be in past perfect, wouldn't have caught a cold. All right. Now, conditionals without if. We can also write a conditional sentence, but we remove if. However, to remove if, we have to make a small step, which is what now we'll find out. So again, sometimes we write a supposition or a conditional sentence without using if, but instead we can use one of these words. We can use were, should, and had. Let's take a look at the following conditional sentences, which are without if. This sentence, if he were here, comma, there should be a comma after the cause, including if. So if he were here, he would see you. Now we can write this sentence as, were he here, he would see you. Now, if you compare and contrast those two sentences, first of all, you can realize that we removed the if and we switched the position, okay, of the subject and the verb. All right, so instead of saying if he were, we say were he. We remove if and we switch those. So were he here, he would see you. That's the way we would use conditionals without if. Or if we have should he won this, blah, blah, blah. All right. So even though it might sound weird sometimes because you're not used to it, the second sentence is also correct. And it's another form of conditional sentences which are written without if. Now, both sentences 1 and 2 have the same meaning. Okay. It's just another form or another way of writing it. In the second sentence, we simply removed if, as we said, and inverted or switched the position, okay, of the verb and the subject. So we had subject first, then verb. Now we have verb first, then subject, without if. So there was no change in the tense at all. We do not move one place back in the timeline, and both sentences are correct in the conditional form. So here we're not changing from a real situation to a conditional sentence. No, both are conditional. We're just in one of them using if, in another, we're not using if. So let's take a look at a few more examples. You should need any, or sorry, should you need any help, please call me. Okay. Instead of saying if you should need, we said should you need any help, please call me. Or were I in your place, I wouldn't listen to his poor advice. So instead of saying if I were in your place, we said were I in your place. Another example, had he listened to my advice, he wouldn't have done a better job, or he would have done a better job. So instead of saying if he had, so if he had, we said had he listened to my advice, he wouldn't have done a better job. He would have done a better job. Okay, so here we had should. Okay, we used it instead of if. Here we had were, we used it instead of if, and here we have had, we used it instead of if. So we can replace if with should, were, or had, and also switch again position of those verbs and the subject. So we start the sentence with them. Should you, were I, had he. Okay, here you have some exercises for you to practice. Then you can check the answers. You have here the answer key and the conditionals with wish. Now, when we express a wish, the form is as follows. For example, I wish I had $1 million. I wish I were able to fly, and I wish that we didn't have to work today. Now, in the sentences above, the past simple is just to express the wish, right? So we have here, I wish I had, I were, and we didn't. Now, in any conditional sentence, we cannot use was no matter what the subject is. Okay, what we use instead is just like in number 2. We do not say I wish I was, we say I wish I were. So the rule says to make wishes in conditional sentences, we shouldn't use was at all. All right. So for example, we can say if I was you, I would listen well. That's wrong. We cannot say that. Instead, we can say if I were you, I would listen well. Again, another example. I wish I have $1 million. Have is incorrect. We should say I wish I had. Okay. So you can use had, were, or did. Okay. And here you have examples. You're going to find the one grammatical mistake. If I have more time, okay, I will play video games. I wish I was able to climb that tree and check out the view. If Daniel had saw the movie, he would have been thrilled. And what you are trying to say, So first of all, if I had, not have, we said we cannot use have. All right. Here, I wish I were, not I was. We said we cannot use were, was in conditionals. And had seen, because had plus past participle, not past simple. And what are you trying to say? Not what you are. All right. So here are the steps again presented to you. How we change.
Moving on. Forms with unless. Okay? Moving on.
Okay. All right. Now we have, here we have, as I said, grammar worksheets. We have the rules stated again. Then we have how we change the third step from positive to negative, as we said. And here we have the forms with unless, okay? Unless means if not, okay? And it's already negative. So for example, Sam listened to the news, so he knew about the quarantine order. Unless Sam had listened to the news, okay? Because unless means if not, which is already negative. So here we said had listened and not hadn't listened. All right. Again, when we use unless, we do not say not here. We do not make the verb negative. Why? Because unless is already negative. Clear? So for example, Sam didn't attend the ceremony because he was too sick. If he hadn't attended, okay? But but here we have the cause because he was too sick. So if he, okay, hadn't been too sick, all right, so hadn't. But if it is negative, we should say unless he had been too sick, all right? Because as we said, unless is already negative. Next, you have more examples, okay? Now, conditionals without if, as we said, we cross the if, invert the subject and the verb, and keep the same tense, and because they're both conditional forms. Here you have more examples, and here's the end of the worksheet. By now, our lecture comes to an end. I hope that everything was clear. If you have any question, please do not hesitate to ask me at mohsen@ischool@gmail.com. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.